Welcome to the Architecture Woodshop and Digital Fabrication Lab on the Marietta campus of Kennesaw State University. The process to make any joint has the same steps in common. These steps are covered in more detail in the joinery overview video. In this video, we'll walk through these steps as they need to be performed when making the biscuit joint. The common steps for the joint making process are the following. Joint selection, and we assume you selected or at least considering the biscuit joint. Then layout, measuring and marking, cutting or profiling, dry fit and tune, and final assembly and glue up. A biscuit joint is typically used for edge joints. These joints join together narrower boards to make wider boards. Note that the biscuit joint is not a structural joint, as it adds only a modest amount of additional strength to the joint. The biscuit joint's main purpose is to align long edges that will be glued together. The biscuit joint is most effective with wood and plywood, however it can be used with MDF or particle board. We'll start from a point in the process that you have elected to use the biscuit joint on your project. So, let's take a closer look at the biscuit joint. The biscuit joint gets its name from the flat football-shaped piece of material that is inserted in a groove cut in each of the two pieces of material that will be joined together. The nickname for that flat piece of material is a biscuit. The parts of the biscuit joint are the slot in the material and the biscuit. The biscuit joint goes together by inserting the biscuit in a slot cut in one piece of material and then bringing the other piece of material into place alongside the first, with the biscuit sliding into a matching slot in the second piece of material. Note that the slots are usually cut an equal distance from a reference edge of each piece, so that when the two pieces are joined together, the reference surfaces match. That is, the edge-glued pieces of a tabletop that were joined with biscuits would align, creating a flat, or at least nearly flat, surface. Different configurations or variations of the biscuit joint include the following examples. The edge joint, where narrower pieces are glued together to make a wider piece, and that's the most common example. And then sometimes biscuits can be used to help with joint alignment in corner joints. Before getting too far into the process to make the biscuit joint, you should consider whether finished surfaces will be created before or after assembly. Sanding surfaces to produce the finished surface can actually change the dimension of the piece, and therefore how it fits together with the other pieces. You should probably perform the process steps to produce the finished surface and final dimension of the pieces after assembly and glue up of a biscuit joint, so that the resulting surfaces are not only smooth, but flat as well. In order to keep track of what each piece is and its correct position as you work on the joinery, we recommend you mark the joint pieces with lines where the biscuit slots will be cut on the reference surface, so that all slots will be cut the same distance from what will ultimately be the same surface. When joining more than two boards using biscuits, additional marks of a cabinet maker's triangle or a differing number of slashes for each pair of boards will help with matching the sequence and position of the boards relative to each other. Guidelines for the biscuit joint are that the biscuits should not be too close to either the top or bottom surface of the board. If they are too close, they may telegraph their position, and the resulting glue-up will not be flat. Usually biscuits are placed in the center of the thickness and not placed closer than 3/16 of an inch to the edge of material they are joining. Therefore, biscuits should not be used on material less than ½ an inch in thickness. Biscuits come in different sizes as well. The most common size of biscuit is the number 10. There is a smaller biscuit size, which is the size number 0, and a larger size, which is the size number 20. Consult with a staff member on which size of biscuit we recommend for the size of the material and project you are working on. It's time to measure and lay out the biscuit joint. The following tools will be needed for measuring and marking the parts of the biscuit joint: a tape measure and a pencil. Note that we're using a marker in the videos for better visibility. Use the following process to measure and mark the biscuit locations. Place the boards to be joined together in the orientation as they will be joined, with the reference or good side up. Decide how many biscuits will be located along the joint. The biscuits close to the end of the joint should be about 2 inches to 3 inches from the end of the joint. If the boards to be joined are long, a biscuit should be used about every 6 to 10 inches along the length of the joint. Measure the location of the biscuits and mark a line across both boards at 90 degrees to the joint interface at the location of each biscuit. The easiest and only method we have here in the shop to make a biscuit joint is to use a biscuit joiner. You will also hear a biscuit joiner called a plate joiner. The biscuit joiner that we have in the shop will cut slots for all 3 sizes of biscuits, 0, 10, and 20, depending on the depth of cut setting on the biscuit joiner. You will need the following tools in order to make a biscuit joint: the biscuit joiner, clamps to secure the material, and bench hold downs or hold fasts are recommended, and then biscuits of the appropriate size. Let's quickly take a closer look at the biscuit joiner. The biscuit joiner is a hand power tool that uses a removable motorized disc with cutters on it to cut a slot in material. There are 2 handles on the biscuit joiner: the switch handle, which contains the on-off switch or trigger, and the auxiliary handle, which is on the top of the joiner. The motor is activated by pulling the trigger in the switch handle. The switch handle is spring-loaded to keep the cutter covered unless you're making a cut. Pressing the switch handle forward reveals the cutter and allows you to cut into the material. Both hands should always be used with the biscuit joiner in order to safely control the tool. The biscuit joiner does not have any dust collection capability, so wearing a dust mask is advised. We also recommend that you alert colleagues nearby that you're about to stir up a lot of dust so that they can mask up as well. Since the biscuit joiner produces a loud, high-pitched noise when used, wearing hearing protection is also advised when using the biscuit joiner. Have a staff member assist you with the setup of the biscuit joiner so that the location of the slot in your material is appropriate and the depth of cut is correct for the size of biscuit you will be using. You will be using both hands to operate the biscuit joiner when cutting the slots, so secure your material so that it will not move when cutting. Bench hold fasts are recommended. When making the cut, perform the following steps. Verify that the material is securely held and that the slot can safely be cut without interference from hold downs or cords. Position the biscuit joiner fence against the material, aligning the joiner's center registration mark against your layout mark, holding the tool by the switch handle and the auxiliary handle. Turn on the tool and allow it to come up to full speed. Holding the tool squarely against the edge surface, plunge the blade until it bottoms against the stop. Continuing to hold the tool squarely and firmly, allow the return spring to retract the blade from the work, and then release the switch to turn the tool off. Make test cuts in a couple of pieces of material similar to the good material you will be cutting, and verify the following. That the biscuit is located in the desired position in relation to the thickness of the material. This is usually in the center. Assemble a test joint to verify that the slots cut are deep enough to fully house the biscuit and the pieces come completely together. Verify that you have the ability to make cuts that are consistently the same distance from the reference surface so that when the pieces are assembled, they result in a flat joint. If the position of the slot is different from what it needs to be, ask a staff person for assistance in adjusting the biscuit joiner. Once you're comfortable cutting the biscuit slots, proceed to set up your good material and cut the slots for real. Once the parts are cut, dry fit the joints together with biscuits in the slots to assure that they fit correctly. Your objective for the biscuit joint is to have joints that come together with no gaps and are reasonably flat along their length.
So you should probably have the first couple already put together.
In order to glue the biscuit joint, glue should be applied in the slots and along the entire edge surface. A modest amount of glue should be used to avoid squeeze out. Use the following steps. Prepare a clamping area by laying out some protective paper under the clamps that will be used to clamp the joint together. Also use some tape or paper over the clamps to protect them from any squeeze out that may occur. Apply glue in the slots of one part first and insert the biscuits. Apply and spread glue along the edge of that piece. Apply glue in the slots of the second piece. Then bring the two pieces together and align the layout marks on the two pieces of material. Clamp the two pieces together by gradually applying an even increasing pressure along the joint. After the glue has cured in the joint, level out any inconsistency in height by scraping or sanding, and then sand to the final finished surface. The critical keys for success with any joinery that are particularly relevant to biscuit joints include the following. Accurate and consistent milling and dimensioning of materials. In this case, edges that are straight and square, and parts that are the desired thickness. If you're using multiple parts that are supposed to be the same thickness, then they should be the same thickness. Accurate and precise layout and marking of joint location. Double checking the setup of the biscuit joiner to confirm that it is set to the desired angle and cut depth. Precise cutting or profiling to the desired location. Making test cuts in identically dimensioned material to assure accuracy of setup. Some additional keys for success with the biscuit joint include the following. Position the biscuit joiner against the material aligned with the mark where the slot is to be cut. Let the joiner reach full speed before pushing the handle forward to plunge the cutter into the material. And do not let the position of the biscuit joiner change during the cutting process. Hold it down against the material the whole time. A well-made biscuit joint has the following characteristics. When the joint is assembled, the surface is flat and there are not any gaps between the pieces of material. Thank you for watching this video, and we hope you come to visit us in the shop sometime soon.